So please make yourself comfortable. Close the eyes if you like. Bring your attention to the body. Sometimes when I say bring your attention to the body, I know some people immediately bring the attention to the breath, but that's not exactly what I'm asking anybody to do, but there's nothing wrong with bringing your attention to the breath right away. I'm just asking you to take a exploratory look at the body, kind of a sensation, as a sensation and a feeling more than anything else. How does the body feel? What's drawing your attention to it at this particular time? Is there a pain or a discomfort that is asking for your attention, and why might that be? Did you overuse some muscles and kind of stress them out today, or at some other time recently? Did you fatigue something? Is your back or shoulders kind of saying, thank you for not dragging me around again all day? Is there a part of you, part of the body, that feels very content right now? And it's interesting, when there's a pleasantness in the body, it's more like a quietness. It's like that area of the body is not complaining. When we find ourselves in a comfortable place, maybe outside in a park, and we finally sit down in the nice cool grass and maybe lay back, and it becomes very, very quiet and serene. It's like the body itself is being quiet. No aches and pains. So the quietness of the body is really quite an experience, and something that we all really should appreciate. And for many of us, the older that we get, the less of that we will actually experience. The aches and pains of aging is something that most everybody experiences. And even very, very young people have aches and pains in the body. And so sometimes it has nothing to do with age. And so we can use all of this stuff, body-related things, as a meditation object, just like we have been doing for the last few moments. We're focusing on an object, And we're not thinking of the past necessarily or the future. And so even when we're focusing on something in the body that is unpleasant, we can be very present. We can be very, very much in the moment. And for the mind, this can be like a mini vacation. And for some people, using the body in general as a meditation object might work, but even that is too broad of an object for most people to really contain the activity of the mind. And so, as meditators, we want to narrow that field so that the mind doesn't move around. And then that way we can tell and have a more of a determination of whether we're focused and concentrated or not. And it's very much like staying on the bullseye. If we were throwing darts in a bullseye, staying on target would be good, but staying on that bullseye all of the time would even be better. And with the target in front of us, then we can monitor that. And it's kind of that way with the breath. When we focus on the breath, there's many different areas that we can still focus on. Everybody uses the breath differently, and they prefer to use the breath in certain ways. One teacher will tell you to focus intently on the breath at the tip of the nose and to hold your attention there. When your attention wanders, as soon as you notice it wandering, bring it back. Be very deliberate and be very precise in keeping your attention on the tip of the nose where you feel the breath. These are very common instructions. Something else that we might hear is to focus on the counting of the breath, to allow the mind to settle. And so maybe each inhalation we count 1, and we exhale. Next inhalation we count 2, and exhale. And we might count up to 10, up to 21. We might even count up to 100 or more. Some people prefer to count backwards. And it's a very, very effective way to stay with the breath, to stay concentrated. And many, many moments and minutes can go by, and we can realize that we have been skillfully staying with the breath by counting the breaths. And many people prefer to visualize something in conjunction with the breath, to visualize the top of the inhalation, maybe the bottom of the exhalation. How would that look? What would that represent for you? Some people see a vertical line. When we breathe in, the top of the inhalation's on the top of that line. Then we breathe out. The exhalation is in the bottom of that line. And so they visualize that aspect of the breath and stay with that. And that can be very effective for people. And we should also consider adding the middle of the breath in the same way. Because that is the point where a lot of people lose the breath. So as long as we're staying with the breath, if that is our intention, we are meditating. And I might add that we're doing a good job of meditating. When the mind wanders off and starts daydreaming about the future or something that happened in the past, we're still doing the practice of meditation, but some might say that we aren't actually meditating if we allow that to continue to happen. But I would like to add that it's still a part of the practice. And so the breath can have many tools. Breath meditation can include many things. We might notice the warmth or the coolness of the breath, the moisture of the breath, the duration, one breath being longer, one breath being shorter, the depth. You might breathe in deep at one point and maybe shallow at another time. Just feeling the breath. Sometimes it's very obvious that the breath is there, and sometimes it's so subtle that the body seems to breathe on its own. And in fact, when we meditate for long periods of time, it often seems as if all we have to do is keep the lungs open and the breathing just happens. Very, very subtly. We can visualize the breath. We can feel the breath. And we can, more than anything perhaps, use it to come back home to. When we use the breath and we have a consistent practice in meditation, that the breath can become a very dear friend to us. And it feels very much like coming home. And it's actually coming home to this presence, this true nature. Which is also this oneness, and often defined as love, that we all share. And so we could say that if we set the intention to use the breath as our meditation object, and we are using that and doing that correctly, focusing on the breath, that is, that we are really basking in our true nature, or our Buddha nature. And while that is happening, that is who we truly are. And we could say that we're, at that point, we're connecting with the source, if you want to look at it that way. So for the next 15 minutes, I would like to have you use the breath. If there's something that is hindering your ability to do that, allow yourself to take a look at it and give yourself permission to set that aside, and tell yourself that you'll come back and deal with that later. And come back to the breath, and just remind yourself of your intention to rest in this present moment. No past, no future, no fear, no anger, no desire for things to be any different than what they currently are. Try to sustain a level of energy and be very loving towards yourself without judgment. With your attention on the breath, take a little deeper than normal inhalation. Notice how that feels. Take a few more deeper than normal inhalations of the breath. Wake yourself up a little bit. Bring your palms together in front of you, if you like, at the heart center. May each one of us and all beings be well, happy, and peaceful. May no harm come to us. May no difficulties come to us. May we all meet with spiritual and worldly success. And may we have the patience, the courage, and the understanding to meet and overcome any problems or any difficulties that we might face in life. Thank you, everyone. So for some of you, that could have been a little bit of a different meditation, maybe a little bit more of awareness on the breath, and for a lot of you, it could have been no different than what you normally do. You know, what we talk about is what comes into our awareness, and we talked a lot about the breath before actually going into the meditation. So. Chances are it can change things. You know, being a little bit more attentive and being just being a little bit more present, you know, with the breath. Using the breath in a different way, and just taking advantage of the keen awareness that we might have and be experiencing at that moment with the breath. So you just did the practice of anapanasati, or mindfulness of breathing, and the most common meditation practice in the world, you know. And it's the type of practice that anybody can do, and I wish everybody would do it. But it's the only practice that the Buddha actually gave explicit instructions on, mindfulness of breathing. But he also said that he did talk of other depths that meditation can take us in, but he said that the breath and using the breath, you know, could take us all the way. Deeper states of concentration and things like that. If you're very, very interested in exploring breath meditation a little bit more, there are lots of things online. There's that free program at Meditation Learning Center, and the second book I wrote, Mindfulness, Minding the Breath, is about minding the breath. And it's instructions that were written about the teachings of the anapanasati, that the Buddha's teachings. And in those teachings, he talks about how to use the breath in the way that we did, but when we're doing that kind of practice, there are different things that we notice. You know, the mind has a way of it can stay with the breath but it can wander off. And I shouldn't say wander off, but it can kind of explore things. So, and it's very, very, very subtle. So if we're focusing on the breath and we feel a sensation in the body, we can be focusing in another part of the body. We can be focusing on the breath, but our attention can also kind of almost be split and go to that other area of the body as well. And that probably happened for all of us, probably maybe much more than we realized. And so we can be having these feelings, these pleasant feelings, and focusing on the breath. We can have unpleasant feelings and still be focusing on the breath. We can and of course we can use the breath in many different ways, but we can also notice our mind states, like our moods and emotions. We can notice our level of concentration while we're focusing on the breath. We can notice how happy we are while we're focusing on the breath, or how miserable we might be by focusing on the breath as well. So when we're focusing, especially if we're really consistent with our meditation practice, it's not like we're turning off the entire world while we're meditating. We're focusing on the breath, and we're noticing these different aspects of the body and of the mind. And we can also notice and focus on the teachings of the Buddha. This is another part of Anapanasati where the Buddha talks about how we can be using the breath and still contemplate, different aspects of his teachings, of the Dharma, namely impermanence. Why we have this. Why is it so difficult to find this lasting happiness, in life, and really the impermanent nature of everything, can be contemplated while we're still focusing on the breath, while we're doing our meditation practice. And so that's our formal practice. And if we do that consistently, we can take that off the cushion, and then we can practice mindfulness in every aspect of life. We can use the breath if we like. We can, and I know many of you do this. You might come to a red light, while you're driving, and rather than thinking about something that you're going to be doing or thinking about the past, you might just focus on the breath for a few moments while you're waiting for that light to change. If you're waiting at the bank, well, people don't go to the bank anymore these days, do they? Grocery stores, people still go to the grocery store. If you're waiting in line at the grocery store, try focusing on the breath. If we find these moments that we can do this, it's really no different than our formal practice of sitting here and using the breath in the way that we just did. We might be standing, eyes open, knowing that there's another thing that we have to do, but find a few moments to focus on the breath and be mindful of our breathing for a while. Taking a few moments throughout our day to do that is a very, very good practice. It really heightens our level of spirituality and our level of knowing and understanding who we are throughout the day. Even better yet, if we can, if we have a day job, a 9-to-5 job, and on our lunch break we can find a few moments to find a nice quiet place and do a few minutes of breathing meditation. It can really change our days to have a morning practice, give it a little shot in the afternoon over lunch, do a little practice when you get home, and it can be a life-changing experience. I share this with a lot of people, but I used to, when I had a 9-to-5 job, I used to get in my car and go to a park and meditate. I did that every day, well, 5 days a week when I was on the job. And, eat my lunch and meditate, or meditate and then eat my lunch, whatever I felt like doing. And that really became a really big part of my practice, that afternoon meditation. It really helped me out a lot, spiritually, and really made work a lot more enjoyable too. But the mindfulness of breathing, again, is when we look at the explicit instructions that Buddha gave on meditation, there are not a lot of them, but he did give instructions on mindfulness of breathing. And so that is, again, very much what people do when it comes to, the Buddhist practice, and we call it vipassana for the most part. There are, from the Mahayana tradition, there are tantric practices which involve a different type of concentration and things like that. But primarily, the primary meditation is using the breath, mindfulness of breathing. Whether it's jhana or whatever we're trying to get out of our meditation practice, we're still using that same object, the breath.